Hello again and thanks for joining. So today we've got a Fleischmann tank engine to have a look at. It's number 4016 and it represents a Deutsche Bundesbahn 242 tank locomotive. This is another second-hand purchase obviously, and it comes from a time when the Fleischmann boxes had this really eye-catching yellow and red livery on them. This one has got quite a lot of shelf wear on it, but it's holding up not too bad and there's no yellowing of the plastic film there. So let's get this out and we'll take a look. So inside the packaging we have this leaflet here telling you how to maintain and take apart this locomotive. Interestingly, it has 1316 on here, which is different than the box number, so I'm not quite sure whether this is been a reissue and it's just using the old instructions. But they do look really cool and it's got this kind of vintage look to it. And on the back it even shows a really old controller here and a bottle which says benzine on it, which is quite cool. So here is the locomotive out of the box, and one thing that strikes you straight away is the real weird character of this locomotive. It looks as though it's just had these wheels slipping all the way back and they should be further forward. It's quite unusual and certainly not anything like a UK locomotive of the time. I've also noticed that it looks as though this one has had some paintwork done to it in the past. It is a second-hand purchase and some of that paint isn't looking too good, I think. So we'll have a sympathetic review of the paintwork on this, but we can certainly enjoy a lot of the detail on this locomotive. And this locomotive has quite a characterful front end to it. It's got this almost comedy small boiler compared to the bulk of the rest of the locomotive, and the front here has this nice smoke box door with some brackets on it and little clips, and above it has this lamp with a number upon it. I think this is where the paintwork starts because you can see that some of the paint has actually got onto the chimney as well. It's a really nice shape of a chimney, but it does have some gold paint there. Down on the footplate we have these markers here, which I've seen on other locomotives from Fleischmann, and they're made of metal. And further forward we've got another set of little lamps as well. Then we start to see some more extensive paintwork happening down here because this is normally red on these steam locomotives. So this buffer beam hasn't got any detail on it. It's got some quite nice buffers there, but it has this massive coupling hanging out the front of the locomotive, which is really spoiling the looks there. But the footplate does have some really nice rivet detail, and also underneath the smoke box there as well. Got these handrails moulded into the side of the boiler, which have been picked out in silver really badly, and it has this pipework here picked out in gold, again really badly. So I think that's going to be a theme of this locomotive. It's had a hard life, unfortunately. There's some really good detail on the tanks here with the rivet detail and these hatches, and a representation of handrails up here. And then we have this dome here with the typical screw. Now that is holding the chassis to the body, and it's very typical of Fleischmann locomotives of this era. And then we have this other pipe here which has been painted in this gold colour by the previous owner. And then as we look at the cab details here, we've got glazing which isn't really flush fit, but it's nice and clear. But unfortunately inside the cab is just the motor. You can see the big gear wheel there. It's quite neat that they've moulded this one halfway down though on this door, and there's a lot of nice details on the side of the cab, including these handrails and all these plates and numbers here as well. There's even steps going back up to the bunker here and electric flash here as well, which gives you some idea of the era that this locomotive is from. Up on top of the roof there's this really nice part here which I think is actually made in metal. I guess it's a bell, and a nice hatch here, and this whistle here which has been painted gold. You can see some of the matte black paint here which has been added on to the actual black plastic, which has got a bit of a sheen to it. So it's a real mix of styles here. I think this probably needs a total repaint, so it may need some paint stripper. Here's the bunker with some coal in it. Not a very good representation of coal, but it's not too bad. I also like that it isn't stacked all the way up to the top. And looking at the back of this locomotive, we've got some more lamps here and these buffers here as well, very similar to the front. Looking down on the chassis area, we've got these parts here which have some detail on them. So this is obviously the metal part, so it's not quite defined as the top plastic part. We've got a set of ladders here, and then we've got the valve gear. It's quite a lot of it, and it's got this red insert as well, which is really nice. It does have a lot of sideways movement here, but I think it probably needs that in order to operate. And the piston here at the front has a number on it, and these really quite defined studs on it, so it's quite a nice little moulding, that one. The pony truck hanging out the front is articulated to allow this to get round tight corners, and it has these typical Fleischmann wheels, which are all made of metal. They've got red inserts and chrome outers. It does seem to have pickup going here to the motor. And here you can see that these two wheels are driven. They've got the gears on them there. So I think we should take this apart and have a look at the mechanism. Okay, now we've taken this model apart, we can see the chassis here. It's got this very heavy weight here, and the motor's back here. We saw that in the cab, and we've got all the gears on this side. with this white grease on it, but they seem to revolve okay, and there doesn't seem to be any problems with any of the valve gear. Also see it's got some brake gear here moulded into the metal as well, which is quite cool. Looking inside the motor there, we can see it revolving as I turn the gears. It doesn't look too bad, it has been used a lot obviously. We'll give it a go on the test track in a moment. Okay, here it is on the test track. Let's give it some power and see what happens. Well, what a pleasant surprise that was. It just ran perfectly straight away, no problems at all, and it crawls along at a really nice pace as well. It did have a little bit more noise when it was running backwards than when it was running forwards, but overall this locomotive is a great performer. So I think we should see how much it weighs. So this locomotive weighs 217 grams. So overall, this little German tank engine from Fleischmann has turned out to be quite a little bit of a gem, even though it's a bit of an ugly duckling as well. The prototype of this model just looks a bit quirky, as if those driving wheels are too far back, and it seems like there's far too much bulk at the back of this locomotive than at the front. It's a really weird looking thing. But it is quite characterful, and I think a lot of that character has been captured by Fleischmann in this model. This particular one is looking really sorry for itself with this really bad paint job, and this could turn into quite a nice little project to get this back to what it should be. Let me know in the comments below if you think it's worth my time to make this a little project and do a restoration job on it and get it back to looking really good. Or the alternative is just to sell it on as it is and let somebody else enjoy that. But if you see this locomotive, I think it's probably one worth getting, because even though this model is a little bit older now, it still seems to run really well, and it may not be up to today's standards in terms of finesse, and there are some limitations like the screw on the dome which I don't like, and the valve gear is probably a bit oversized, and it's also very shiny as well, which isn't really that prototypical. But you can forgive all those things for the real character of this locomotive, and it offers a lot as well in terms of the detail that's been added onto it, and the actual proportions of this steam locomotive make it something a bit different. So it's one of those kind of ugly duckling things that you maybe end up falling in love with, or maybe it's just not your thing. Anyway, let me know what you thought about my analysis of this model in the comments below. I'd love to know what you think. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. It really helps this channel grow. I'll put this on the turntable so you can see all the way around, and you might see this locomotive again in a video where I start to restore it. You never know. That's it for today. Thanks for watching. See ya.